Okay, heli freakers, this is the new Compass Models Odin, claimed to be the first nitro size helicopter with the electronic cooling system, and that's a picture of the custom made fan to do just that there. Odin, of course, the old Norse god, the head honcho, god of war, married to Frigga, who was the goddess of love, and you all know about Frigga, of course. Anyway, it claims to be the most innovative RC helicopter in its class. So, a little bit of specs on the side down there, 30 meters long. There you are, there's your gear ratio, 8:1. That's a pretty low gear ratio. Takeoff weight very low there, just over 4 kilograms, and can take our rotor blades up to 710 millimeters. On the other side, we've got a little picture of the head down there. We're going to have a little zoom in on that, but we'll see the real thing in just a minute. There we go. That's our head for what that's worth. Okay, let's get on and see what's in the box. Now, try as hard to keep head out of the way of the camera. Now, I have to say this box has been into a little bit by myself and by the distributor, who was very curious to see how it would fit a 90 size helicopter in this size box. There's our manual down there. This looks around about a dozen pages compared to the Stratus manual, which is nearly 200. We've got a list of parts in there, very handy for ordering and a bit of an idea how to get it together. Our almost obligatory warning, check your spindle bolts because they're not going to be what tied it in. Okay, now if we get into the box itself, and we might just zoom in here so we get a slightly better view as to what's going on. We've got some carbon fibre. This looks like the real McCoy carbon fibre and not some of the pressed weave imitations on there. Stabilizers and servo holder and CNC, typical CNC boom strut ends down there. No big deal. Hiding inside of our canopy, we've got a box of bits which we'll have a look at in a minute, but there's our canopy there. We'll rip the bubble wrap off so we can get a bit of a view of that. That's not a bad looking canopy there, like the colour scheme. That's your best colours there, your green, yellow and red. It's pretty sleek looking and it's pretty small for a canopy for a 90. Looks pretty nice. Looks pretty substantial, moulding as well. Getting on with that, we've got a couple of foil wrap packs. Now what on earth is all this for? This is in fact containing a UBEC here, which is a rated 3 amp one with a maximum of 5 amps, so that might be a little bit on the low side if we're going to use our 8717s, but it's a nice thought. There is also a brushless speed controller in here, and this is for the brushless fan to cool the heli down. This heli does not have a conventional cooling fan. It's all done by electrics, which accounts for a little bit of increase in power. Moving on, we have our main gear and tail belt pulley gear here now. This is pre-assembled. Obviously there's a one-way in there. Can't really say if it's a roller bearing or it's a proper Sprag dang one way, but it looks pretty substantial. It's nice and flat there, there's no warping in that, it looks like it's a good moulding, and it's a substantial, I'd say this is a modulus 1 teeth on there, so that's looking pretty good. Going on from there, we have our rotor head as well, completely assembled. These are good chunky grips on here, plastic, but they look very similar to the MA grips there, and it's a nice strong feeling plastic on that. No fly bar cage as such, sort of Raptor style half moon sort of radius arms for this, but that's a pretty neat looking head, I'd say, on there. Looks good. Moving on, we have our boom, which is an aluminium boom on this. It looks like it's probably around about 18 to 20 millimeters. We'll measure that up when we go to assemble the tail. We've got all our long wiry bits in here, like our strut supports, and a thoughtful little point there, got some blanking pugs on the end to stop all the bits from falling out, which is real good. Pretty uninspiring looking gear struts. They look quite honestly just like T-Rex 600, 700 ones there. Little carbon bracket. Nothing very special about that. Now we've got a box here with a hole in it. Looks like Nora's already been getting her way into this, so if you see a brown wrap pop out, that's what's happened. But we'll see what's in the box here now. Here's our tail drive system. We've got a belt in there, we've got an assembled CNC cage in there with a nice big tail pulley on there, so I don't think we'll be seeing that belt slipping so much. Carrying on, we've got our clutch diaphragm, our clutch bell, and a carbon fibre stiffener or mounter for the clutch assembly, I'd say. That's our pinion in there that looks pretty substantial, and that's quite a few teeth on there. That probably explains the low gear ratio on that. We have got a tool, presumably for holding the clutch while we do the bolts up. Bits going everywhere. We've got our swash pack here, together with our radius arms. Looks a fairly common garden swash. Don't see any nuts for any grub screws for adjusting that swash on there, but looks like it's okay. Servo mounting plates, push rods, nice touch here. We've already got the ball links assembled onto the push rods, which is great. I can't stand doing that myself. Interesting touch here, 2 clutches. Why should we have 2 clutches? Well, the answer is found if you look at the labelling. We've got one for OS and we've got one for YS. There's no fan here to be screwed onto the output shaft. So what we've got, it appears, is a little moulding connector here, which screws directly onto the shaft, and then the clutch mount basically screws directly onto the top of that. And the only trouble, of course, is that YS and OS have got different threads, so we've got an adapter for each, but the clutch, I would say, is exactly the same. Whoops. So we've got a spare clutch thrown in, which is really good. Looks very like a T-Rex clutch. There's no one-way in this though, so you might need a one-way starter shaft for that, but we'll look into that later. We've got a 10mm, fairly lackluster gunmetal main shaft there, nothing special about that. Got some pulleys for the tail belt, nothing special there. We've got some nice looking, very light blades. The cyclic response on this with these blades is probably going to be pretty fierce. These are light blades, they're very like the MA ones. They're nice and stiff, they look quite good quality on that. And here's the bit that you've all been waiting for. Here's our frames. This is not going to be so much a build video as an assembly video here. And look at the size of that. There's my hand. There's the size of it. It's got the fuel tank ready mounted in. Just the one hole of it. The pressurization line here goes in through the drain plug down there. We've got fairly ESP sort of oblique bell cranks here for the aileron crank. Servos are going to be mounted, aileron servos are going to be mounted right the way back here, so there's going to be long push rods for that. Elevator servo going to be mounted in a fairly classical position here. What's really notable about this is all the cross bracing on. Look at these cross brace frames down here. And that's Ben removing the canopy condoms off that. Cross bracing there, front and back. CNC moulded bearing holders there. Lots of aluminium CNC cross braces. There's a machined alloy base plate on here as well. And this is bloomin' stiff. There's not going to be any movement in that frame whatsoever. So there we are. I think compared to all the number of bits I had for a Stratus build, this looks like it's going to be very straightforward, and we might even get it done in one very windy Saturday afternoon where the weather's looking just a bit too gusty to fly.